addressing no one.
So if we are standing up and talking, where do you want us to position?
So we're going to stand over here and AJ, so I'm, you see me now, they can see me in that square. Everyone on Zoom and YouTube. Like very much.
Yes, very much so.
You can use my card.
Julie et Odile, si vous voulez activer vos caméras et mettre un fond, Monsieur Hercule.
Je ne suis pas sûre de savoir comment mettre le fond, mais je peux essayer de...
Alors, Monsieur Hercule a envoyé dans la discussion une petite indication à Odile. Si tu peux faire copier-coller puis le renvoyer aussi à Julie, ce serait super. Merci.
Alors, c'est bien les États-Unis, hein, Julie. J'ai des nouvelles dans la maman de Lucie.
Oui.
Il paraît que vous êtes très contente.
Oui, ça se passe bien.
It's like it makes it for me. It made it so much more real, like which made things stick when I was like, oh, I'm interested in, not just like the words and things.
Yeah, it's nice that it's in person as well.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was surprised.
Tu vas pouvoir, Antoine, regarder la vidéo.
Like RSVP that it was in person.
Tu vas pouvoir regarder.
Non, je peux pas parce que c'est le closing dinner ce soir. Et ça commençait à 19h. Ils mangent tôt, les Allemands. Donc, j'espère qu'ils me garderont un peu.
Déjà, tu vas arriver en retard.
Oui, mais c'est pas grave, ça, je les ai prévenus. Mais je pourrais la voir après.
J'espère qu'on pourra la voir, je pense.
Oui, on l'aura.
Juste, j'ai une question pour les questions. Du coup, qu'est-ce que vous avez besoin que j'aide? Parce que je viens juste de les voir rapidement.
Juste ce que vous vous souvenez. Je vais vous le mettre dans le chat.
Peut-être donner le programme, c'est-à-dire qu'est-ce qui a été prévu au niveau des horaires surtout. Parce qu'en fait, au niveau du contenu, on va improviser en fait. Et puis je vous fais confiance pour ça. Je vais improviser en français, en anglais, comme vous voulez.
Je vais vous envoyer ça. Faut que je trouve.
And so like I
know how to play that.
And you want to go back and just see that. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know.
It's not part of my everyday, it's like
that's what it is. It's funny because I studied in high school for 10 years.
Keep track of people who were in here.
That's fantastic. I have learned Spanish and French seems like in terms of learning how to read French. Like in Spanish, you write like that almost almost all.
Like I said, I never like officially learned how to write. I just know how to speak it.
Yeah.
People talking.
Yeah. But if you do that, you can probably write it out. That's true. But for French, like it's a bigger leap to. I'm trying to teach my daughter, like, no, even though that's how you, like, she writes the way it sounds, you know.
Thank you.
There's a lot of like things I'm
Program.
learning.
Yeah, we're gonna get started in about 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think I learned a lot about English grammar.
Okay.
Studying
I
French.
understand people are gonna come to lunch.
That's
around us.
Yeah.
It's a good perspective from other ones.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not French student, actually, Dr. Loyson for presenting friends and,
Yeah.
we went from the Middle Ages to. Begin?
Okay. So the good church, that makes sense.
I don't mix your reactions. So it's like
You ready?
I am ready.
I love that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Do people, to our friends in the Zoom room, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly well, thank you.
Yeah? Okay, great. So welcome to Montclair State University. Thank you all for coming. I know we have a much larger audience streaming than we do in this specific room. Thanks COVID. This event has been a long time coming. But we are thrilled to have so many attendees here, both in person and online, for the culmination of this very special collaborative project between our university and the University Gaudemont. And all of it is part of International Education Week, which we are celebrating right now. I'm Kathleen Loyson. I'm Associate Professor of French in the Department of World Languages and Cultures. And you're going to be hearing a whole lot in our video about how this project came to be, so I won't repeat that story now, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank a number of very important colleagues who helped bring this project to fruition. First is Domenica Dominguez, who's no longer with us here at the university. She just left her position as Director of International Academic Initiatives. We all miss her, and she is the one who brought to my attention the existence of a grant opportunity with the FACE Foundation. The Transitioning to Virtual Exchange COVID-19 Relief Fund. FACE is the French American Cultural Exchange Foundation, and it's supported by the cultural services of the French Embassy in the US, as well as the US Embassy in France. My liaison at FACE was Ms. Kathleen Loyson, and I'm so grateful to her and the foundation for their financial and moral support. Thanks to this grant, I was able to partner with my two faculty counterparts at UVM, Dr. Sophie Rashford and Dr. Francois, whom you will meet shortly. And through whom I had the pleasure to meet Dr. Lucy Edwards and Dr. Sabine Saint-Champ, who were guest lecturers during the project. We've been working so closely together over the last year, it's hard to believe we've never actually met in person, Sophie and Robin. Next, I'd like to thank Dean Peter Kingstone for his enthusiastic support of the project, along with the grants offices at MSU and UVM, without whom none of this would have happened. I'd like to thank the media and tech teams on both campuses, headed here at MSU by Dr. AJ Kelton and his main woman, Jenny Young, who hopefully is arriving soon, and at UVM by Mr. Régis Dedevu. Your expertise and guidance were crucial. I learned so much about B-roll and editing and subtitling and rendering videos. I might want to start a whole new career. But don't tell my chair, Dr. Lois Oppenheim, who is in Israel this week, or my colleagues the rest of my colleagues in world languages, without whom I would also like to thank for their unwavering support. I'd also like to thank Dr. James Manasor and Mr. Steve Davanti from New Jersey Historical Society for inviting our class to your archives, and for giving us such a wonderful lecture and hands-on experience, and for coming here today. And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank the students, all of the students on both sides of the Atlantic, for your patience, your enthusiasm, your laughter, your insights, and your efforts. you are the ones that we do this for, and you are the ones who are at the center of this project. We'll have the chance to meet just 4 of these students during the panel discussion after the film, and I'll introduce them at that time. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Stuart Kingstone, the Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, who would like to say a few words. And we will then hear from Dr. Antoine Ertlé, who is Vice President of International Relations at UVM. Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thanks all for coming. Thank you for staying up late in France to join us. I'm really delighted that you're here. I won't take up a lot of your time. I'm as eager to see this video and hear the discussion as you are. I just want to, first of all, thank, of course, all the folks here at Montclair State who've made this happen. I want to thank all the people at the Université de Bordeaux-Montaigne for their support, their collaboration, the 2 embassies, of course, and most importantly, to the students who produce this. I just want to take a second and say why I'm so excited about this project. And when Kate approached me about supporting it, I enthusiastically threw my hat in the ring. One is the obvious thing. So Kate said, thank you, COVID. That was kind of ironic, but the non-ironic version of this is it's reminded us that there actually is technology that we can incorporate into the classroom and allow us to reach out and meet people and exchange with people that we might never actually meet. And especially as someone who's worked internationally, the idea of getting students across different national borders to work together and meet each other and talk to each other is extraordinarily important. So thank you, COVID, for getting us to think about new creative ways to introduce technology into the classroom. The second that I'm really excited about is that I'm a great believer that the only way you come to really understand your own society is through comparison with other societies. And to bring students together to grapple with one of the really great and pressing social justice issues that we're really seeing in different manifestations all over the world is really wonderful, really important. It teaches you a great deal about another society, but it also gets you to look at your own society in ways that you might not have otherwise. And it helps you to see across cultural borders and national borders and recognize that we as a people, all humans across the entire globe, share a common set of problems, concerns, and principles that bind us as human beings. The last thing I want to emphasize, I think is really exciting, is that as we move into the 21st century, a lot of us, I think, are recognizing that the old model of education, where I stand and project my wisdom out to you and you receive it and then write an essay, is really not fit for purpose in the 21st century. And a project which really invites students in to be co-creators and co-discoverers and co-producers of knowledge is really, really exciting and is disruptive of the ways that we think about education. And so I'm on that note, I'm going to stop again. Thank you, students. Thank you, faculty, for producing this experience. And now I'm going to take a seat and I want to sit back.
Thank you, Peter. Dr. Ertlé.
Yes, thank you very much, Kathleen.
Joining us from overseas.
Good. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, I think it is for you. I'm calling from Germany myself. I'm not in Bordeaux, next to my, close to my colleagues and friends, but I'm supposed to be in the closing, to be attending a closing dinner at this very moment. But thanks to you, I'm escaping German cuisine for a while. So plus, seriously, I wouldn't have missed this important event for anything. Our president is currently on a plane back to Bordeaux, but I told him I would be with you tonight, and he was proud and supportive and told me to sort of brief him on when I come back to Bordeaux on how things went. And as I was saying, I wanted to be here because I think this project is a very important and beautiful project. I mean, as Peter said, it's to start with, it beat the pandemic. I mean, it beat COVID. You know, it allowed students, in spite of the difficulties we've been through in the past few months, you know, to do something, to build something together with students from the US, and that's very precious. That's unique, and we're very grateful to everyone who was involved in the project for having given our students this opportunity. A project which is both cross-cutting and cutting edge. I mean, we learned a lot from the technology. You master much better than we do. I think we have to admit, and we managed to create. I mean, to bring this project to fruition and completion, thanks to the help of so many people, support staff at International Relations Office, technical staff, faculty, especially my colleague Sophie and Laurine from the Applied Languages Department, one of our departments which offers programs on cultural diversity and languages, which are one of our, one of our major angles at Bordeaux Montaigne University. And a project which finally demonstrates that our two institutions, our two universities, are able to work together and build very successful projects and offer very exciting things to our students, to both our student populations. And I think that it also shows that they should continue to work together and continue to build and to come up with innovative ideas, such as the one that we are witnessing tonight. So congratulations and thanks to all the persons involved in this project, and first and foremost to Sophie and Laurine, through whom I first heard of it, and to Delphine at our international office, who from the very beginning offered to liaise and to support the project with daily meetings with Sophie and Laurine. We have to thank the FACE Foundation, of course, because without their financial support, none of this would have been able to come to completion. And again, thanks to beyond my French colleagues, to these new colleagues at Montclair, to Kathleen, to AJ, whom I've just now discovered on the screen, and who I would really like to continue working with and to meet in person, because this German meeting I'm attending now is the first we've had in more than a year, and believe me, it makes a difference when you can actually shake people's hands and speak to people and observe their eyes and body language and communicate more sort of intimately and efficiently with them. So I do hope our students and our faculty and our staff can meet sometime soon and build other great projects like this one. So congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Okay, so we will show our film now, after which we will have a break, and then we will continue on for our panel discussion. So I want to say just one quick thing. So for accessibility reasons here at Montclair State, all of the captions are going to be in English, right? So the film itself, people are speaking in French and in English, and you'll also hear a smattering of other languages. But everything is going to be captioned out over YouTube in English. So that I think covers just about everybody, except perhaps some French people who don't speak English, who might be watching, but I'm not sure. There's too many of those that are involved in the project. So without further ado, our project. And you'll also hear a the lights.
Hello. Salut.
Salut, buenas tardes. Bonjour, ni hao.
Bonjour, konnichiwa.
Salut, привет.
Bonjour, buongiorno.
Welcome to New Jersey. Located in the northeastern United States between New York State and Pennsylvania, New Jersey is about 150 miles in length and only about 70 miles wide with a long shoreline. You can even see New York City from our university campus, and Philadelphia is only about a 2-hour drive. The state is divided into 21 counties, and Montclair State is located in Essex County. Our state capital is Trenton, and while we are a very industrialized and densely populated state, we have earned the nickname the Garden State because New Jersey is the United States' leading producer of cranberries, blueberries, and tomatoes. We also have many beautiful parks, farmlands, forests, mountains, and beaches. Why should you come to New Jersey? If you come from abroad, you should not worry. You will fit right in because New Jersey is incredibly diverse with over 9 million inhabitants. And according to the State Office of Diversity and Inclusion, around 45% of our population identifies as a person of color. The largest immigrant groups come from India, China, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico.
New Jersey is also home to the fourth largest Haitian American population after Florida, New York, and Boston.
The town of Montclair is known for a socio-economically and ethnically diverse populations of just under 40,000 people, along with its welcoming spirit. Visitors and commuters can take the train, the bus, or drive into New York, which is only 12 miles away. Montclair has 7 public elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 1 high school. One of our middle schools is even named for the famous astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who grew up in Montclair. Downtown Montclair is quite vibrant. We have many entertainment centers like art galleries, Montclair Art Museum, the public library, boutiques, live theaters and concert halls, restaurants representing cuisines from around the world, and so much more. There is also an annual Montclair Film Festival, which draws visitors from around the world. We shouldn't forget the history of Montclair. Situated on the land traditionally belonging to the Lenape Native American, the area began to be settled by Europeans in the late 17th century. A strong traditions hold that George Washington and the Marquis de Lafayette were in Montclair in 1780.
Not far from the boulder marking Washington's Montclair headquarters, it's what's now known as the Freed Slave House, the home of James Howe, a formerly enslaved man granted his freedom upon the death of his enslaver, Nathaniel Crane, a descendant of Montclair's founder, Israel Crane.
Montclair State is a public university founded in 1908. In the United States, public university receive funding from the federal and state government, usually leading to lower tuition costs than at private institutions.
Our university is located in the Upper Montclair neighborhood.
We offer 8-degree granting schools with over 300 programs to choose from. We also have a graduate school offering master's degree and doctoral degrees. We have over 21,000 students. Montclair State is a commuter school, but we also have several residence halls. Our undergraduate population has approximately 16,000 students, 40% of whom identify as white, 13% as black or African American, and 29% as Hispanic or Latino. We are officially designated a Hispanic serving institution by the U.S. federal government. Students of other ethnic backgrounds such as Asian, Native American, or Pacific Islander, or those who identify as more than one race may come up the remainder of the student population. Just over 50% of our students are between 18 to 21, but many fall outside this range, often working full-time or even raising a family. We have many buildings on campus, including Dixon Hall, named for David Dixon, the first African-American president of MSU. There is also a student recreation center, a library, several performance venues, green spaces,
sports fields,
cafes, and more. Now let's talk a little bit about the Department of World Languages and Cultures. Housed in Conrad Smith Hall, we offer language and cultural courses ranging from civilization and literature to film and translation in 9 language areas. No matter their major, all students at the university are required to take 2 language courses. Students can go on to major or minor in Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Hebrew, Italian, Japanese, Korean, or Russian. Spanish and Latino studies constitutes its own department to better serve the university's large Hispanic population. Finally, in partnership with the Feliciano School of Business, we offer a language, business, and culture major for students interested in international commerce while also concentrating
in a second language.
We have students and faculty of all different backgrounds involved in the French program, hailing not only from New Jersey and other states, but also from Francophone regions such as Quebec, Haiti,
West and North Africa,
and France. French majors pick from among 3 concentrations: French civilization, translation, or teacher certification. And students can even continue on to earn their master's degree in French,
concentrating in French studies or professional French translation.
Située sur la côte atlantique, Bordeaux est la plus grande ville de la région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, qui s'étend sur tout le quart sud-ouest de la France. Les étudiants bordelais viennent de toute cette région, comme c'est le cas pour les étudiants ayant participé à ce projet, ainsi que vous le voyez sur cette carte. Mais ils viennent parfois également de bien plus loin. Nous avions Raphaël de Paris et même Héloïse de Suisse. Bordeaux est une ville ancienne, inscrite au patrimoine de l'UNESCO pour ses façades du XVIIIe siècle. À cette époque, elle était un port majeur du pays, faisant l'objet de nombreux échanges de produits et de main-d'œuvre. Avec un tel passé historique, le nombre de lieux à visiter est particulièrement riche. Le quartier Saint-James est reconnu pour son architecture, mais surtout pour ce qu'on appelle la grosse cloche. Puis il y a la place de la Victoire. C'est là, généralement, que se retrouvent les étudiants.
Le jeudi soir, vous aurez l'occasion de voir la place de la Victoire en fête avec les soirées étudiantes. En effet, le jeudi soir, c'est le rendez-vous des étudiants au bar ou sur les quais histoire de décompresser. Mais attention au mal de tête le vendredi matin. Au niveau des bars, il y a des thèmes pour tous les goûts. Jeux vidéo, danse, pub. Pour les moins fêtards, il y a toutes sortes de cafés pour étudier, lire, rencontrer ses amis ou même pour jouer à des jeux de société. Entre le comptoir des chats, l'anti-café ou le Starbucks qui vient des États-Unis, le choix est vaste.
Pour continuer notre visite, il y a la rue Sainte-Catherine, rue piétonne la plus longue d'Europe, qui s'étend sur 1,2 km. On s'y rend en général pour y faire du shopping, puisqu'on y trouve toutes sortes de magasins. On peut aussi tout simplement s'y promener et profiter de l'animation des rues. Sur la place des Quinconces, on trouve le monument des Girondins, érigé en souvenir de la terreur qui suivit la Révolution française. Suivant les saisons, de nombreux événements y ont lieu, notamment la fête foraine ou le cirque. La place de la Bourse et son miroir d'eau se trouvent le long des quais, un endroit très agréable pour se promener ou passer du temps entre amis.
L'accès à l'université Bordeaux-Montaigne se fait par le tram B à l'arrêt Montaigne-Montesquieu. Vous la
Supposed to be having the English subtitles showing at the moment.
L'ours et son miroir d'eau se trouvent le long des quais, un endroit très agréable pour se promener ou passer du temps entre amis.
L'accès à l'université Bordeaux-Montaigne se fait par le tram B à l'arrêt Montaigne-Montesquieu. Vous la découvrez ici en période de Covid où le campus est vide puisque les enseignements ont entièrement basculé à distance. La première université de Bordeaux fut créée dès le XVe siècle. L'université de Bordeaux-Montaigne doit son nom à Michel Équem de Montaigne, philosophe humaniste et moraliste de la Renaissance. Bordeaux-Montaigne est la faculté des lettres, arts, langues et sciences humaines de Bordeaux. Notre université accueille environ 18 000 étudiants chaque année, dont 2 000 étudiants internationaux. Notre filière de langues étrangères appliquées représente quant à elle quelques 2 500 étudiants. Le corps enseignant et le personnel administratif comptent 1 300 personnes. C'est une université publique, comme la quasi-totalité des universités en France, ce qui signifie que le coût de la scolarité des étudiants est très majoritairement financé par le budget de l'État. Seuls quelques centaines d'euros sont à la charge des familles, bien que le coût réel s'élève à 12 000 euros par étudiant, la différence étant couverte par les impôts. L'université Bordeaux-Montaigne est composée de 3 unités de formation et de recherche, ou UFR. L'UFR Humanité, l'UFR Sciences des territoires et de la communication, et notre UFR, l'UFR Langues et civilisations. La filière Langues étrangères appliquées comporte 3 blocs disciplinaires d'égale importance. Le premier est un bloc de matières obligatoires pour tous et axé sur le monde de l'entreprise, économie, droit, géopolitique, mais également informatique et français. Le deuxième bloc disciplinaire commun à tous les étudiants, est l'anglais. Enfin, en plus du français et de l'anglais, les étudiants doivent choisir une 3e langue parmi les 9 proposées, qui sont l'allemand, l'arabe, l'espagnol, l'italien, le portugais, le coréen, le chinois, le japonais et le russe. Enfin, à la suite de la licence LEA, les étudiants peuvent choisir parmi 2 masters, le master commerce international et pays émergents et le master langue, affaires, interculturalité.
L'avantage de Bordeaux, c'est qu'en dehors des cours, il y a plein de choses à faire. Que ce soit avec les associations étudiantes de l'université comme Lead the Way pour les LEA, à la maison des étudiants où ont lieu par exemple des cafés japonais, ou en ville, vous trouverez forcément votre bonheur.
This project between Montclair University and the University of Bordeaux actually started thanks to Domenica Dominguez, who heard about the FACE Foundation grant for virtual exchanges. So she contacted on our side one of our colleagues, whose name is Véronique Béguin, who is the person in charge of the partnership between our 2 universities. Véronique thought about Sophie Rashford and I as potential, contacts for this program or for this project, because she knew that Sophie Rashford and I both work in a sort of collaborative translation group at the university, with which we translate poetry, mostly Caribbean poetry, but also we translated in the past poetry from Los Angeles, all sorts of things. It was due to this, belonging to this group of translation that she thought about us. As a result, Sophie and I started working with Dr. Loyson, and we came up with loads of thrilling ideas, and that's how we launched the project.
We did have an existing basis of a partnership with Bordeaux. We had some contacts over there, and we just set to writing the grant under Domenica's direction, and it became what it is today, which is this wonderful collaboration with Bordeaux. We had 11 students from Montclair State, and we had 12 students from the University of Bordeaux-Montaigne. So a total of, 23 students. At Montclair State University, it was the students who are enrolled in our degree program in French translation, who were going to be taking the course in French translation that we were offering this semester anyway.
We have a 3-course sequence, and this was the second course in the sequence, Translation 2. So they would have been taking this course anyway, whether we were involved in this project or not. So we just thought this was a way to enhance their classroom experience, give them some real hands-on material to work with instead of, just thinking about translation in a theoretical way or translating text that really didn't have any relevance to their lives. This was a way to show them how translation can work in the real world.
On our side, we had 12 students participate from the second year of LEA, which is the Applied Language Program, and they were chosen. We sent a message to all second-year students in LEA. So this means 15 groups. This means about 450 students. We told them about the project, and we asked them to volunteer and apply. Included in their application, since we knew there would be some videos to make, we asked them to send a video form of their application so that they would be ready to use their smartphones as the project required. So they were chosen on that basis. There were 15 applications and we chose 12.
The primary goal was to fulfill the mission of the FACE grant, which was to provide a forum for virtual exchange during the age of COVID. That was the mission of the FACE grant, was finding ways for students to experience some sort of exchange program even when travel was not possible. Our specific goal, as we were trying to meet what FACE was asking for, was this combination of translation with the critical examination of a social question. And we chose the issue of Black Lives Matter since it's so pertinent, and this blossomed into many other questions around democracy, citizenship, the foundations of the two democratic societies. But France and the United States are two of the oldest democracies in the world, and yet we're very different in the way we conceptualize some of the foundational concepts of democracy. So the students and we discovered a lot about that through the practice of translation.
I would say that if there hadn't been the COVID-19 crisis, this project would not have been possible at all, because simply in terms of technicality, our university would not have invested so much money in a Zoom account if there had not been the necessity to do so. And without the Zoom, there was no way we could have done what we did. The sessions together, inviting people that we interviewed, working in breakout rooms 6 hours apart from one another. It turned a difficult situation into an opportunity, that grant, because without the FACE Foundation grant and without the access to Zoom, the two together made it possible to give this impetus to the project.
We had different academic schedules here in the United States than they do in France. So we started the semester at different times. We had different holidays. We ended the semester at different times. And so trying to make sure that we had enough time together to actually work on the project in the number of weeks that overlapped over the course of the semester. I'd say that was a logistical challenge. In the United States, we had 2 class meetings per week. Tuesdays, we would meet in person in our translation lab here on the campus of Montclair State University. And every Friday, we would meet via Zoom with the entire cohort of students and faculty from Bordeaux.
On the French side, we could not meet with the students physically in a classroom because almost the entire year, starting November to June, we were constrained to teach online at a distance. And because so many students come from all over the place, sometimes rather far, quite a few of them went back to their parents during the semester. We did not have the opportunity to meet them for real, and all the classes took place via Zoom. However, it was in fact quite good in terms of, meeting with the American students. That was really thrilling to be exchanging live with native speakers and not to have any delay between question and answer. Some of the high points were when we had people invited over to talk to our students. Dr. Sabine Tinchamp-Benrao, who is a social linguistic expert, had this wonderful workshop with them them where she led them to think about how you designate people who are white, non-white, and also she led them to think about those words that we refuse to say or that we feel awkward saying and why, and how this is also telling about our society.
One of the biggest things that I think they learned in relation to the question of race in both countries, I think the American students were shocked to learn that no one is counted by race in France. This enumeration by race and ethnicity does not happen. And I think the French students were just as shocked to discover that everything is counted by race in the United States.
And yet they all said that when they had to describe a person, to them it seemed to be quite irrelevant to mention the color of their skin. Most of the students in this group came from multicultural backgrounds, multicultural families. So most of them had traveled. Some of them were actually immigrants or children of immigrants. And that was true also on our side. So over the weeks of this course, the students were made to work on quite a few different projects, quite a few different documents and types of work. This was a translation class. So they worked on speeches, they worked on articles that they had to translate. And the way we proceeded was to pair them up, one American, one French student, and to make them work together in breakout rooms. They were right away confronted to the reaction of the other person. If they said something that was awkward or not clear, they had right away the reaction of the audience. So instead of translating as they usually do, just writing a translation on a paper and then handing it in to the teacher and waiting for the feedback, right away they had a native speaker who told them, oh, no, that doesn't sound right. And they had to readjust to find the right connotation, the right tonality. This made translation much more lively, but also it gave sense. It gave meaning to translation because they realized that when they translated, it was to actually convey the right message, the right thought to an audience. And that audience became suddenly real. So it's really gave this real life dimension to translation that they very often lack in a classic translation classroom. It's something that we usually tell them. We tell them, never forget that you're going to translate for someone who does not have the same perspective. But telling them is one thing. Having them experience that for themselves is a totally different thing. It did work its magic on them, and they became much more aware of how careful they had to be in picking their words.
I think working on the Macron speech was a really interesting exercise because it was just at the moment when Americans here were reacting to Macron saying, we don't want American university ideas about race and diversity invading France, ruining the French national character. So really this idea of multiculturalism, that took us down the path of secularism, la laïcité, separation of church and state, even though both countries, France and the United States, are founded on the basis of separation of government and religion. The students discovered that this is formulated and enacted in very different ways in both countries. And the word la laïcité really sums up that difference. And so our students, our American students, really had to grapple with, well, how would I translate this word?
Some general goals were to compare how issues of racism translated and were lived on both sides of the ocean in terms of the legacy of slavery, knowing that Bordeaux was the biggest slave port in France, which is not known, or it's not something that is easily told about in school, for example, or taught. And then we found out that in New Jersey, it's sort of the same thing, since students were unaware that there was slave history in New Jersey. It was not abolitionist. It wanted to keep on slavery. So they were very surprised and shocked to find this. And this was quite an exchange between the students.
One of the high points of our semester was getting to visit the New Jersey Historical Society in person, arranged by the director, Steve Tetamonti, and the director of the research library, James Ememesor, who gave us a wonderfully informative lecture about the history of slavery and enslaved people on the Eastern Seaboard and specifically in New Jersey.
And so New Jersey, as we know it today, as an English settlement, started in 1664. So we are talking about that. But before then, there were some Africans here because the Dutch, we know, had introduced slavery, African slavery, to what became New Jersey. So when the English took over, there were some Africans here already as enslaved people, and probably free people as well, because we continue to see evidence of free Black people in New Jersey.
They would actually let us touch those really, really old documents and original documents, which was really like, I don't know how to explain that feeling. It was just surprising and intense for me.
Yeah, it really brought it alive, didn't it? I mean, seeing the old handwriting. Some negative ways that COVID affected the project was, for example, in France, they had much longer periods of lockdown than we did here in New Jersey. And so while they had planned to have a field trip to the Musée d'Aquitaine, it turned out in the end that they were never able to actually go visit the museum in person. Luckily, we were able to interview Lucy Edwards, who was the translator of the book documenting the exhibit at the museum on the history of slavery in France and Bordeaux's involvement with it.
It's important not to rewrite history. I think it's important that we look at what happened in the cold light of day.
The linguistic reality, which was to designate human people as if they were not human.
They're objects, they're possessions. There's a list of the slaves on the sugar plantation in Saint-Domingue, and it says there's the homme, le femme, les nègres, les négresses, les négrions, les négrettes, et les animaux. Ils sont listés avec les animaux, avec les chèvres.
That fact speaks to itself, you know.
Speaks to itself.
And that's why it's important to keep language as it was, to show the horror of the reality that was in fact encapsulated in the language used at the time.
I think another aspect that the students learned quite a bit about from Lucy Edwards was the profession of translation.
Also how stressful it is. That's what.
Yes.
They didn't realize how stressful it was.
Yes.
And one of them said, "Oh, that's for me now." Because I like things to be stressful. Another one said, "Okay, I don't want this because it's stressful for the same reason."
Another great highlight was the culminating project for the students in their pairs was to choose an article related to Black Lives Matter in either France or the United States and research that article and present it to the rest of the class. So the students could see that the fight for racial justice isn't something that rose out of a vacuum. They could see this history going back centuries. In terms of areas of commonality among the students, I think they all discovered just how difficult it sometimes is to talk about questions related to race. There definitely was some discomfort that the students had to overcome to be able to talk about these issues in an academic sense and talk about it freely. In terms of meeting our goals, I think we certainly met our goal of fostering intercultural communication. All the students were able to just get on Snapchat or Facebook Messenger and just form these instant friendships with one another. I also believe that we met our goal of shedding light on the dual history, the history of racism and slavery in both countries and the connections to the present time.
I think that when you study languages, that's the whole point. The ultimate goal is to interact with people of the country. That was the real life experience of the year, especially at that time of the pandemic.
One student said that it was the highlight of her 2 years at university. It was the best thing she had done.
My name is Kathleen Loyson. I am Associate Professor of French in the Department of World Languages and Cultures at Montclair State University in New Jersey. As part of my duties here, I am the coordinator of our undergraduate French translation program. I did my undergraduate work at Boston College and earned my PhD at New York University. And I have a dual specialization in early modern French literature and in translation studies.
Hello, I'm Laurine Francois. I'm an associate professor at the University of Bordeaux-Montaigne in France. I teach American literature as I wrote a dissertation about Elizabeth Bishop's prose and poetry. But I also teach undergrad translation classes in the Applied Modern Languages department. as well as business English, negotiation, and intercultural mediation at the graduate level.
So my name is Sophie Rashford, and I am an associate professor of American Studies at Bordeaux Montaigne University, and where I've been teaching since 2001. I've been teaching American Studies and English, the English language, and I've also been chair of the Applied Modern Languages Department since 2012, which is about almost 10 years.
Bien, bonjour. D'abord, permettez-moi de me présenter. Je m'appelle Castor Adelin Castor. Je suis originaire d'Haïti, vivant aux États-Unis, spécialement à New Jersey, il y a environ 21 ans. Je suis étudiant à l'Université de Montclair. Comme vous le savez, autrement, je ne serais pas là. En fait, on a étudié français.
Hello, I'm Léo Dupeyron. I'm in my second year of Applied Languages, studying both English and Japanese. I'm passionate about Japanese state of mind and music, and I come from Bergerac, a city located in Dordogne at 1 hour drive from Bordeaux. I'm sure it's a really nice place to visit, so let me know if you want to know more about it. C'était très intéressant de travailler avec quelqu'un de plus expérimenté aussi bien dans la vie que dans les langues. Et grâce à Adelin, j'ai vraiment pris confiance en mon anglais et je le remercie pour ça.
Oh, je suis flatté de ta part, Léo. En fait, ce semestre a été pour nous un succès, non seulement pour la traduction, mais aussi pour notre communication en partenaire. Et d'ores et déjà, je vous souhaite un bon avenir.
My name is Escani Sanfor. I'm from Haiti. Actually, I'm a sophomore. I'm majoring both in linguistics, also in French. Actually, je parle 4 langues. Je parle français, I speak English, yo hablo español también, et moi parle créole haïtien.
Du coup, moi, je suis Lucie, j'ai 19 ans et du coup, j'en suis à ma 2e année de fac. Et puis à côté, je fais de la danse de salon, donc je fais de la salsa et de la bachata et de la kizomba. Et voilà. We could accomplish good work because we got along very well.
Le fait de pouvoir travailler en équipe, on était toujours disponible pour les projets. La façon qu'on a discuté à fond les sujets, ça m'a aidé d'avoir notre perspective sur la façon que vous, les Français, vous aviez sur les faits. Donc, c'était vraiment une expérience extraordinaire.
Hi, my name is Randy Smithson. This is my senior year, currently in the Language Business Culture program at Montclair State University. My parents are from Haiti, but I was born here in the United States, Old Bridge, New Jersey. I currently speak Creole and English, and I'm trying to study French.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Héloïse Chopé-Renaud, je suis étudiante en 2e année de licence à Bordeaux-Montaigne. J'apprends le chinois, mais je parle aussi anglais et espagnol.
During this project, we both learned that we have to be careful when translating. Literal translation isn't always the best choice, and translating word for word might give the wrong feeling to the reader.
We encountered this problem when using the word influence due to how it doesn't have the same meaning in French and can't be used the same way.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I am a junior at Montclair. I study English and French, and I'm also pursuing a master's in English. I am from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I'm Italian, and I have a lot of family also in France, and I speak English and French.
Hi everyone, my name is Raphael, I'm 20. I used to live in Paris, but now I'm living in Bernac, which is a city nearby Bordeaux with my 2 siblings and my mom. When I got some free time, I like to hang out with my friends and practice judo. I'm also studying Japanese and English at University of Montaigne.
Most useful thing in translating with a native French student is when to use specific words and phrases that an American translator is not particularly aware of.
Then I'd like to add that it helped me a lot with the using of sentence structure. And finally, it was really fun and enriching as we learned about New Jersey and Bordeaux slavery involvement.
Hello, my name is Gervin Germalis. I'm currently studying French translation with a minor in computer science at Montclair State University. I was born and raised in Haiti. Both of my parents were born and raised in Haiti. I speak French, I speak English, and I speak Haitian Creole.
Bonjour tout le monde, je suis Candice et j'ai 19 ans. Je suis en deuxième année de ma licence et ma deuxième langue est le chinois. Depuis que j'étais petite, j'ai toujours aimé voyager et j'ai de la chance parce que ma mère est originaire du Portugal. Je vis dans les Hautes-Pyrénées dans une petite ville qui s'appelle Bagnères de Bigorre. Donc j'adore le sport et vivre dans les montagnes, ça permet de me défouler. Comment on dirait en occitan? Mercès plat.
The words can be so many things. There's a country difference, like Republican.
Du coup, c'était intéressant parce qu'on a beaucoup appris sur la culture des uns et des autres et des choses qu'on pouvait penser que c'était pareil pour tout le monde et qui en fait sont différentes.
Bonjour, my name is Taib Ostron. I'm a sophomore at Montclair State University. My major is a business, culture, and language with a specification in the French language and culture. I am American, French, and Turkish. I speak all three languages and have all three nationalities.
Tadia Rao, je m'appelle Odile Cazeneuve, j'ai 21 ans et je suis en lettres étrangères appliquées à l'université de Bordeaux-Montaigne où j'étudie l'anglais et le chinois. Je suis bordelaise, mais j'ai la nationalité française et anglaise. Ma famille française est originaire de la région de Bordeaux et du bassin d'Arcachon, et ma famille anglaise est originaire des États-Unis et d'Angleterre. 再见!
What surprised me the most was how easily we understood each other and how well we worked. It felt as working with a student from my own class and not so much an international exchange.
Moi, ce que j'ai trouvé le plus intéressant, c'est d'en apprendre plus sur la traduction. Et j'ai trouvé que le travail en binôme m'a permis de vraiment se rendre compte que la culture a une influence sur la compréhension.
Hello, my name is Amelia. I speak English, Spanish, and French. I'm a political science major. I'm a sophomore. I previously lived in Quebec, Canada, which is why I speak French. My parents are Dominican and Spanish, and I live in Lodi, New Jersey.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Kenza, j'ai 21 ans et je vis à Langon, une charmante petite ville du sud-ouest de la France à 20 minutes de Bordeaux. J'aime aussi beaucoup l'art, y hablo también español, Canada, Arabia, y I also speak English and un peu italiano. J'aime beaucoup le sport, j'ai pratiqué du tennis pendant plus de 10 ans. De plus, je travaille dans un hypermarché Leclerc où je passe la plupart de mon temps en dehors de mes cours.
Traduire avec Amélia a été vraiment bénéfique. J'ai appris beaucoup de choses grâce à elle. Nos cultures sont différentes et c'est ce qui est intéressant. J'ai adoré partager mes idées et entendre des points de vue différents.
Working with Kenza was very fun. Every time we met on Zoom, there was a bond. We developed a friendship I'm very proud of. As she said, our cultures are very different because we live in two different countries and have very different governments.
Bonjour à tous, je m'appelle Ming. J'ai 28 ans et mon spécialisé est français, traduction et éducation. J'ai 28 ans et j'ai 2 fils. J'habite à West New York, New Jersey.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Alexandra et j'ai 23 ans. Je viens de Lorraine où vit toute ma famille et j'habite maintenant dans les Landes avec ma mère. J'ai donc des bases d'allemand et d'espagnol. Je suis en deuxième année de licence et j'apprends le japonais, l'anglais et en cours du soir j'apprends le coréen. C'était une très bonne expérience de pouvoir traduire avec l'aide de Mine car j'ai appris que certains mots ont des différentes connotations et que nos visions du racisme présent dans nos pays diffèrent.
I love that we can work together to translate the whole article from French to English.
Bonjour, my name is Stephen Ochoa, and I'm a 21-year-old student that goes to Montclair State University, and I'm currently studying jurisprudence and French, and I'm also of Colombian, Guatemalan, and North American descent.
Salut, je m'appelle Julie. J'habite dans le Médoc, situé au nord de Bordeaux et dans la région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, mais je suis originaire du Nord-Pas-de-Calais et de la Lorraine, dans le nord et l'est de la France. Je suis actuellement en deuxième année de langue étrangère appliquée, où j'apprends l'anglais et l'espagnol, plus la langue des signes.
Cette expérience a été une belle opportunité pour améliorer mon français. J'ai trouvé cela vraiment amusant de voir comment vivait le français de l'autre côté du monde.
I liked working as partners. Fortunately, we complement each other very well, and because of this, we were able to help each other understand what we were transcribing.
Hello, I'm Stephania, or Steph for short. I am a junior/rising senior. I am a French major with a concentration in translation and a minor in Spanish and international business. I am from Puerto Rico and I currently speak Spanish, English, and French.
Salut, moi c'est Anaëlle, j'ai 19 ans, je suis en LEA anglais-espagnol, entonces hablo un poco espagnol. Je vis dans une petite ville entre Arcachon, là où il y a la plage, et Bordeaux, le centre-ville. And here are some things that inspire me. When it comes to translating, we have to keep in mind really unique context. In this case, we wouldn't use the same words if we're addressing the book to a French person or to an English person, because both countries have different histories and different pasts.
Hi, my name is Iram. I'm 22 years old and I'm a senior at Montclair State University. I'm majoring in marketing and I'm minoring in French. I've been studying French for 7 years now, and my parents are from Turkey, so I can speak Turkish as well.
I'm Victoria and I'm in my second year of university. J'étudie principalement l'anglais et l'italien, mais aussi le droit et l'économie, ainsi que la géopolitique. Io abito in un piccolo villaggio che si chiama Saint-Caprais de l'Herme, nel Lot-et-Garonne.
Salut, moi c'est Marie-Camille, j'ai 19 ans, je suis en deuxième année de LEA anglais-russe. Je viens d'Espelette, un petit village dans le sud-ouest de la France, au Pays Basque, à près de Bayonne ou de Biarritz. C'est à 2 heures de Bordeaux. C'est une région très touristique l'été, notamment grâce à ses plages et à ses montagnes.
I thought it was a really great experience working with you guys, because it's not every day when you actually get to speak to somebody from another country and really understand how they would translate things.
I think it was very interesting because when we were translating, we had different point of view on words and sentences.
I think the pandemic really helped us, because I don't know how we would have worked together.
Okay, we hope that is going to continue. Now we're thinking of doing this in third year here and continuing with Dr. Loyson's class. To make it work, since our students will be more numerous, we are thinking of setting up triads instead of dyads, because we had one triad in our group. The triad said that they had actually enjoyed being a triad because it was much more dynamic, and I think the video was greatly enjoyable, and it helped us and them think back and have specific examples to think upon what they had enjoyed and discovered, and they analyzed this from an interesting angle throughout. When we continue this project, I hope to be able to include this in our curriculum, because I am responsible for the creation of the program, and so I hope that they would become official as a virtual exchange translation class or class in common.
Well, thank you for watching our video. Your patience with some of the technical difficulties with the subtitles, and thank you. So I'm standing in front of the credits here. So I'll let the credits play while I go get Jenny. So Jenny works in AJ's office. You can come so everyone can see you. Jenny works in Dr. Kelton's office, CHSS Media Collab. And everyone spent hours on this, with collecting the video clips, the students, the faculty, AJ's office. We had material, video clips and sound clips and photos and from so many different sources. And guess who put it all together into this film? It was Jenny Young. So, I can't even tell you the number of hours that Jenny spent on this, giving up sleep, giving up homework. And so you are la meilleure réalisatrice. I didn't expect to be rewarded for this. My job. Thank you so much. Well, Jenny is a senior here at Montclair State University, majoring in animation and film. I'm an animation major and my minor is linguistics. So, putting together a video was I have After Effects experience, and it was also interesting because the video was about languages, so it related to what I studied, but it's still my job. Yeah. Well, you went so far above and beyond what we were asking you to do as a job. Every piece of the video owes its realization to you. So thank you so much, Jenny. Make this. Oh, Little Falls trophies. And they got the accent on them. They put the accent over you. So thank you so much. Yeah, so we'll break so we're running a little behind schedule. Let's say we'll break for 10 minutes and then we'll come back for our panel discussion. We have our 2 live panelists here with me, and then we have our 4 panelists over in Bordeaux. Thank you. Or you want the bag, Jenny? Are we visible? Welcome back. Thank you for watching our video, for sharing this afternoon with us. I would like to say that this panel is going to be with the 3 faculty members who were involved in the project, myself, Sophie Rashford, and Francois, who you can see on the screen, and 4 of the students that were involved in the project. They'll introduce themselves. So we have 2 students here from Montclair State, Daniel Marks and Escané Saint-Fort, 2 students from UBM, Odile Cazeneuve and Julie Mariage. So first I will ask each of you to just give a brief self-introduction. Just tell us about yourself. We just met you on screen, but maybe people don't remember you specifically from the video. So Escané.
I am Escané Saint-Fort, 30 years old. I'm majoring in linguistics and also I'm minoring in French translation. So it's been a pleasure working on this project and really enjoying the process so far.
Oh, and I'd like to thank Escané for doing the narration of the introduction to the MSU introduction. Daniel?
I'm Daniel. During the video, I was a junior, now I'm a senior. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was a very fun, interesting project. And I'm really glad to see how it all came together. So.
Okay, I don't know who wants to go first, Julie or Odile.
I can go first. First, I'm sorry I couldn't put my camera on. I don't. So I'm Odile, I'm 22 and I'm from Bordeaux. And I'm in modern applied languages.
My turn, yeah. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, yeah, great. So hi, I'm Julie. I'm 21. I'm also in modern applied languages. I'm currently in the US in the state of Oklahoma. And yeah, I keep studying and I'm doing my last year of university. So consider as a senior here.
Thank you. You might notice that Julie's name is not on our program. One of the panelists had an emergency and Julie stepped in at the very last minute. So merci beaucoup, Julie from Oklahoma. And Odile, vous êtes là?
Yes, I already spoke. I guess you didn't hear me.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Okay, so yeah, I said I was sorry because I couldn't put my camera on, and so I'm Odile. I'm 22. I'm from Bordeaux, and I'm studying modern applied languages with English and Chinese.
Thank you. So we'll go around the 4 students and ask you just some questions about what sorts of what you gained from the project, right? So first, maybe we'll ask the French students what you gained from the project in terms of your language level, your language skills, and translation skills.
I guess first about language skills, it did help in English, of course, because I had an American student that could really help me when I was looking for some words or thinking about how to build a sentence. Like I was with Tahib, he could directly help me to think about which was the better way to address an American public. But I also actually improved in French too, because when I had to explain to Tahib which what he didn't understand about some French sentences, I had to really think about what the author meant and to really think about French constructions of sentences to really make sure I was explaining him right.
Yes. Really?
Yeah, so translation was translating was really good. So I've learned of course lots of new vocabulary. And as Olil says, sometimes it's not easy to translate, especially some French expression that we used to hear, and we're just trying to focus on how can we translate that. So yeah, that was not always the easiest thing to do. But I've learned that when you translate, you have to be aware of your audience and also make sure you of the context. So, because some words are similar in French and English, but they don't have the same signification. And so you have to be aware of that. And so, yeah, that's collaborating with people really helps to have another point of view on the thing and being more open-minded when you want to translate something.
Penny and Daniel, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, one of the things that really have a language learner is the level of exposure to the language, and especially for me, since I've moved in America 4 years ago, to get acclimated with the language, weather, everything. So it's pretty intense, but I enjoyed the process, especially whenever I have the occasion of meet up with people. So it's a learning process for me. And this experience particularly, I had a good level of exposure where we have several casual situations where I could express myself and I could learn new illnesses and some other things that I would never be able to in a formal setting, but that project gave me the opportunity to learn so much more.
Yeah, I echo what everyone has said. The first translation class was asynchronous, mostly I'm assuming due to the pandemic. So there was limited collaboration. There was some, but this was really rooted in collaboration, especially with someone from a French-speaking country. So there's just certain nuances to the French language that I did not understand, that I still don't fully understand, but Raphael, my partner, was very quick to say, well, we would say this in this context. And I was very quick to do the same for him. So yeah, I really appreciated the collaborative aspect of this.
I don't know if Lorine or Sophie wants to add anything, but the one thing that I'm really thinking about here in terms of language was how much time we spent on the difference between La République and Republican. Okay, La République Française, right, has nothing to do with the Republican Party, right? And so if we were trying to translate something that was talking about les valeurs républicaines, right, the values of the French Republic, we couldn't translate that as Republican values, right? Okay, so trying to find different ways to say things like that, where the word looks, pretty transparent that it means what it means, and yet it doesn't. Rolene or Sophie?
Yeah, what was very interesting is how much of the different cultures was important. It was important to know about these the different cultures and the talk that they had about the different, what we call civilization, but the different cultures, the French culture from the inside and the American culture from the inside, and the dialogue that they had together, and the fact that they realized that there was very different meanings behind these different words that seem similar. And I think they became aware of that. And in a live situation, I think that was the fun part of it, is to translate as an experience, as an oral experience. It's partly oral because you are discussing, and so it becomes an experience, not just you and the paper and the books and the dictionaries, for example. So it becomes embodied by their, and some of them have stayed friends, have become friends, real friends. So yeah, it was, I think, a success all around in terms of translation and in human terms as well.
Yes, and if I may add just a few words, as I said in the video, Sophie and I actually come from a group of translation where we translate all together, collaboratively, some poetry. And in those sessions, we have those very lively conversations, discussions over how to translate things, and we have a lot of fun. And from what the students just said right now, I'm glad that they had a bit of that experience as well, exchanging with people. And I mean, that's exactly what translation is about. It's about conveying something to another audience, making things accessible to somebody else. And that became, something very lively indeed. So I'm glad they had, the gist of it, and that they could enjoy it themselves as much as we do when we have this workshop with colleagues over poetry.
I believe Dr. Kelton has told us we have a question from YouTube.
We do. We have a question from someone who's watching on YouTube. I believe the name is Marcel Simon. And the question is for the students of both countries. Did you find that the slang words and expressions posed a special challenge? How did you approach translation of slang phrases?
Well, I don't recall there being too much slang, just because we were translating more formal documents, textbooks, things like that.
Newspaper articles, not a little speech. He wasn't using a lot of slang.
Right, but I as a French student, I've had to deal with that, and it's tricky.
It seems to me that connected to slang, we had this issue of having to translate things that were, oral, that were supposed to be speeches and oral language. And I think they had some difficulty dealing with that, oral aspect of the language, because sometimes when we speak, we start a sentence in a certain way, and then we continue it in a different way, because in the middle of the sentence, we've decided that we were going to add something to our thought. And so in the speech that we translated from by Macron, they were confronted with that issue of having to translate sentences that sometimes were not so syntactically correct as we might have expected. And well, the choice you have in translation is to come back to something more, more regular. I don't know how to say that. Something that sounds, more syntactically correct. You have sort of to correct the original speaker, so to say. But that is a difficult choice to make. And that is hard to handle, especially in terms of understanding already, first of all, and then rendering the sentence properly. Yeah, I guess that's the closest.
I think that when Dr. Tachon was giving her workshop about how, actually the workshop was about how do you name in sociolinguistics, which she is a specialist of. She asked the students and us, everyone participating, how do you call someone a person of color? How do you, so everyone said different things. And then we watched a video where Black people from the inside said how they felt, for example, that in French to be called, not to be called Black was, they preferred it to be straightforward and be called Black, for example. But in French, we said many people use the word Black, which is the
English word Black to talk about a Black person, right?
Yes, and this is slang.
this is slang in a way, and it's actually very difficult to translate. I remember that the American students were really surprised that we would use the word in English black to talk euphemistically, to talk about the color without talking about it, and being uneasy. To talk about our unease, we would use the English term. So that was quite interesting, and I think that's what slang is about too. And it's extremely difficult to translate, actually. To translate an English term used in French, because we say black, okay? We say it in the French way, which probably Americans wouldn't even recognize. But okay, that was one interesting thing.
Yes, and just to add on what Professor was talking about, like we had that experience many times, because in translation, so one of the things that is argued about is to keep the authenticity of the text you're translating. So as a translator, you cannot let your feeling influence the translation. So we had to deal with that. Now, in my counterpart, like my partner in France, most of the time, I would tell her that, okay, this is how we say it here. And she's like, this is not something we would, the equivalent, this is not something we would feel comfortable saying. I'm like, well, okay, so we're just doing our job. So, yeah, so.
I think we encountered a little bit of this problem when we were working with the museum catalog from the Musée d'Aquitaine, because they used words like neg, right?
Yeah.
Using the historical term that was used in the 17th or 18th century. And so then we had many interesting discussions with Dr. Edwards about, well, how did this was the word that was used at the time. How did she translate it into English for a 21st century audience, right? And so that was a really interesting discussion. And, just this evolution of the words used to refer to people of color in both countries, the cultural reasons that these words have changed. So the next area of questioning we wanted to talk about was what you learned in a cultural sense, right? And sort of this, what Dr. Kingstone was talking about before, the cultural comparison between France and the United States for your country of origin. We had many students from Haiti or Dominican Republic, or our partners over in France, Julie and Odile.
Well, I guess we've mentioned it before, but the issues around multiculturalism and laicism, like laicité, like there was really, you can see that American people and French people really don't see this the same way, because in France you would never think about saying, yeah, there's 3% Black people, 3% Asian people. That's not something we would even think about. And in America, it's totally normal.
Even our use of the word race was controversial for the French counterparts, right? That they wouldn't, the word race either refers to a human race or nothing at all. There's no such thing as different races, and so they would talk more about ethnic origin, right?
And also something that we learned is that although in France they don't really classify based on race, there is still racial disparity in France. So it sparks a conversation about, is that the right way to go? Because there's still disparity and it seems like it's being ignored. Whereas in our own country, of course there are people who ignore it, but it's so prevalent that it becomes harder to ignore. So it's tricky, and it's a cultural thing, but that's a big difference that I noticed.
Judy?
Yeah. So what was like really interesting also to see about that, it's like, so like racism is like Black Lives Matter movement is like really imposing, like it's really important, like in the US, like it's a big thing. And in France, so as like most people, you guys says, like it's not that much of a big deal. I mean, it's like there is racism, but we don't see it. And so that's why like kind of like talk to me kind of, because like we kind of like just not ignoring that there is racism in France, but it's just like, oh yeah, well, you know, it's just like we don't talk about it, so we will assume probably there is, but it's stronger than what we can think. It's just like, because there's like also a strong majority of like white people as well, and so when you're like surrounded by this kind of like majority, you like you don't really think about just like that. And this is a conversation I also had like with one of my roommate, which is like she's also from like a Afro-American background here, and so that was really interesting to see also how people interact with the fact that, oh yeah, so it's like if you're not confronted to that, you can't really think about it, but when it's about you, it's something that affects you. I don't know if that makes sense, but so that was really relevant, and that makes me like really think a little bit more about just racism in general, and just be like, oh, this is something I can't really neglect it, because it actually is a thing and this is happening. So yeah.
Any other reaction?
Yeah, one of the things that I was amazed about also is we had to address the concept of laicity.
La laïcité, the secularism, the separation of church and state, but there's no one word to say this in.
That particular caused a challenge, and also in the way we perceive the concept as well here in America. I would view it more like a mean of expression. There is no confirming. You're free to express who you are and represent who you are without being judged. But from the French perspective, we could have seen like laïcité from my French partner, as she explained to me, was more seen like there's a particular way to express yourself when you're in public. So like so it's hard for people to see the difference. Like yeah, we had discussions about that, and that was very interesting.
So that came up around questions around the veil, right? How the wearing of the Muslim veil is the attitudes toward that are so different in the United States and in France, whereas in the United States we would never, you have, as Skyler was saying, you have the freedom to express yourself publicly, to express what your religion is publicly, but wearing visible signs of your religion, whereas this is not allowed in a French context in public spaces. And how that has to do with this French national character that Macron was fearing in his speech, that was being sort of invaded, by these ideas of, is diversity, is our focus on diversity separating us, right? And so I think that was the fear that he was expressing, that the unity of the French people would be harmed by this focus on diversity.
Yes, because I think that community is thought of as ghetto in France. Community in the United States, something really positive, because it's the link between people, the bonding, etc. But in France, communautarisme, what we call communautarisme, and we're afraid of, is linked with ghetto, something that's
ghettoization.
Yeah, segregation.
Ghettoization, separatism, right? So we wouldn't translate communitarism by community, but by sort of actually the opposite of that, right? The separating out into distinct communities instead of one population.
And it's the same thing with race. Yeah, excuse me.
No, it's okay. Dean Kingston had a question.
I'm just curious, Julie's comment suggested that the exchange led you to think a little bit differently about your own home, your own context. I was wondering if the other students on the panel or other students in the class felt like this opportunity, not just a matter of translating and understanding the other society, but did it lead you in any way to think differently about your own local society or community? Or
Well, not really, because I have friends and family who have faced this kind of racism. Like for example, I have the brother of my aunt who is black, and he works in banks, and if he's driving with his suit on, he would never get arrested by the police. But on weekends, if he has a sweatshirt, he would often get arrested. So it's something I already knew about, like how it's more discreet than in America, because we're not openly racist in France. It's more like a underlying kind of racism.
Well, for me, something that I really had to reconcile with, it's something that I still think about after this class has ended, is that this information, this teaching of the history, this was the first time that I ever learned about the history of slavery in New Jersey, the history of slavery in France, and I just came to the conclusion that this information was probably purposely withheld from me. You know, I mean, we see today there's people, you know, parents are pulling their kids out of history class. They don't want their kids to learn the history of this nation as it really happened. And I think I've, you know, fallen victim to that, as we all probably have. So I've had to deal with, you know, I had asked myself, why is it that as a sophomore or junior in college in a French class that I'm learning about the history of slavery in New Jersey and not in a middle school history class? Yeah.
I think that's crucial. I learned things from Dr. Hemsor at our visit at the Historical Society about, I didn't grow up in New Jersey, but I grew up in a northern state, the state of New York, and I learned so much about the involvement of the way we are taught as people from the north is, oh, that was something that was in the South. We had nothing to do with that. We were the good guys, right? And we learned so much about the involvement of the North, but then also how the northern states, New Jersey in particular, the New Jersey Historical Society, Dr. Hemsworth describes Newark as the factory for the South. You want to speak about that?
Yeah, pretty much. Most of these ships, materials in terms of equipment that they needed, they come from northern parts of Europe. And yeah, like.
And they were manufactured in Newark, the physical implements that were needed to maintain slavery in the South.
Yeah, just the ropes and sandals and stuff that can be used for the slaves at the moment. They were manufactured in New Jersey.
That was really mind blowing for me personally, I think for the students as well. So yeah, we are taught in France, sometimes they think, well, slavery is an American thing. We had nothing to do with it, and they learned their own involvement. And then in the North, in the United States, we think of it as a Southern thing. So we learned how much we were all implicated during this time period.
Now, I guess there's also the necessity for a state to keep a sort of narrative, you know, a narrative that is told that gives a good impression of who you are, and that enables also a group of people to become a society. So, I mean, this denial of what really happened might be due to this desire to create a story that will unite people and not show the bad aspects of our past. But and that goes back to what Julie said and to what some of you said, because we don't want to speak about some aspects of our past, some aspects of what is going on in our society, we end up ignoring issues that need to be dealt with. And so, you know, the naming or not naming of phenomena, the the naming or not naming of racial the institutionalized racism, you know, that is I think something that that prevents us from managing to deal with our own past, and that's you know that is understandable when you think of the need to once again create a common narrative. But I think that this common narrative is fraught with hypocrisy when you do so. And that's why I guess it was very important for us to speak about those matters, because then some of our students came to realize that, yes, there are things going on that cannot always be seen, but they are there, whether in the past or in the present. So, yeah.
Are there any questions from YouTube?
We have many
Questions from YouTube. Okay.
Good questions. I almost don't know where to start. So Montclair State Sociology Department writes, "Thank you so much for your participation. I see so much promise in this approach. Given the different treatments of race, racism, and slavery in each country, did you find any difficulty to discuss these themes? How did you navigate discussions and translations of these items? I'm sorry, of these themes."
Well, I'll just say, I may be repeating myself from earlier, but very often we would translate the English word race by ethnic origin in French, right? So there again is this, and on the one hand, it's a positive spin that we're all one human race, but on the other hand, it is a way perhaps of denying the existence of institutional racism and the differences and the discrepancies that do exist that Daniel was pointing out. So to translate the word race by ethnic origin doesn't feel the same to me. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but or any other difficulties that you wanted to.
I mean, for me, like, and that's one of the things I had to learn as well. So for the person that I am, I like to tell the truth just the way as it is. And I think that's one of the things that helped me a lot along the process. But at the same time, I was trying to put myself in my friend's shoes, trying to see, okay, like, how would they feel? What if I adjust a little bit? But like I felt it in the dilemma. But at the end of the day, I said, okay, that's my job as a translator. That's exactly what I'm going to do. If I have an opportunity to discuss the context, I will. But as a translator, my job is not to like how and I had to choose like which audience, because we were like a mixed audiences. We had to translate both like for us and our French partners as well. So we're trying to navigate through this dilemma, but most of the time I would vent the feeling of not being too sentimental when it would be more.
We had some interesting discussions also just about the fact that the phrase, the name of the movement, Black Lives Matter, is not translated in France, right? So why is it called? Is that another distancing move, right? To not translate the name of the movement into French. Does it make it feel like an American import? Does it make it seem like something that they're not connected to? Or is it giving a nod to the American origins of this international movement?
And perhaps that's something that is being spearheaded on a government level, but you know, the French, they know how to protest. So, and when things happen in our country, they show up for us in their country. And you know, I was at Rutgers, and I went to their museum, and I learned about Angela Davis. That in France there was a huge effort to liberate Angela Davis. So, you know, the people, I think, and perhaps the messaging from the government are two different things.
Any other questions?
Oh, yes. Steve Ferreira asks, what changes in their societies, if any, do the students think must happen as a result of this cultural and linguistic exchange? What changes in your societies, if any, do you think must happen as a result of this cultural and linguistic exchange?
Vous avez compris la question, Julie et Odile?
Yeah. Well, I guess it would be really good to promote this kind of exchange, because when you learn about others people culture, about how they think, and you really exchange with them, with not just like watch a documentary or something, really talk with someone that is native from the other country, it really helps people open their minds and question themselves and how they react to the world and how they want to leave it, really.
Yeah, I feel like that was very like I wouldn't say entertaining, but like captivant, you know, because like it's just like just the way like we have been interact with people, and as Odile says, like of course like it's like helping really to have a different point of view on the situation and open your mind. And it's also like a good way to exchange like with people about like what you think, but at the same time like you cannot really go to the end of your thought, because it's like this is a very sensitive topics, and like people are very sensitive and you don't want to hurt people, so you have to be really careful about what you said. But I think that will be like giving people a great opportunity to express more about their feeling, their perception about like these kind of topic, or kind of like no one wants really to talk about it because it's kind of taboo, and it's just like, oh well, we've talked about that, we learned through history, but this belongs to the past. But no, it does not, because it's still like going on today. So I think that will be really giving a great opportunity to people to just like express themselves without putting a judgment on what they think, even if it's still very complicated topics, and like you have to really be careful and use the right words to just express what you think about it.
Is there anything you feel like should change about French society that you've discovered through the course of this project?
I would say like French people should be more open-minded for sure, even if we like in a cultural country, because we have like lots of, as you would say, like races, like lots of different people from different country coming to France. French people are still like kind of like not that open-minded, I would say. And I wouldn't say we're like in a white community, but it's still like kind of still, you know, it's like, well, we still have like a lot of people from Arabic countries, Africa countries, but I think like the white people are still like a strong, like it's really dominant. And so depends where you are in France, like just like in the US. But yeah, I think people need to be more aware and more open-minded. And I'm saying that because like I used to like make some jokes sometime, or like to use some words. And so this class, and just like in my personal reflection in general, like really helped me to just like think about that, and just like being, oh yeah, okay, this can affect people. This is not very nice. And I should just be aware of that it can really go deep, and people are really, really sensitive about that. So even like a little joke really can hurt someone. So I think people should be more aware, and it's not because you are French and that you laugh about your country first that you can laugh about all the other country. You can be sarcastic, you can just have like sometime make a little joke, but you have to be careful not to push it too far. And so that's why like I've kind of like learn about that, and I was like, okay, maybe I should really be like aware about what I'm going to say, or just not using this word anymore because there's no reason for me to say. And oh, my friend is, let's say I have a black friend. Well, why should I say I have a black friend? I don't call my friend, oh, this is my white friend. I just say, oh, my friend from this part of the world, or my friend from Africa, or my friend from this place. So, you know, because like, according to people, you don't want to hurt them, and people have a different approach about the topic. So, yeah.
Thank you, Judy.
I think these questions are sort of went together, so I'll ask them together and then you guys can decide how you want to answer them. Same person though, Marcel Simon. To what extent is this difficulty with laïcité and communitarism, excuse me, mesh with the precedence Americans give to individual expression? And in the same context, does French have the concept of code switching, and how does that work?
Well, Dr. Tanchon can talk about code switching for us. If she were here on the panel, our sociolinguistic expert. Do Sophie or either of you want to speak about code switching in French? Is there?
Well, I couldn't hear the whole question that AJ just gave us. Could you repeat, Kate? Because I tend to hear your voice better.
Okay. So la laïcité et le communautarisme, does that so the question says, how does it enmesh with the precedence that Americans give to individual expression? All right, so I think it's getting at the United States is a more individualistic society as opposed to France being a more collectivist society.
I think it's also in schools, like for example, from primary school to high school in France, people are not allowed to wear obvious religious signs. That means no veil for a Muslim, for example. And there are a lot of debates in France every summer around the burkini and other religious items like this. And these are debates, like for example, in an American school, if a Muslim student is allowed to wear the veil, and it's no question about there is a question about if you're French, you're not supposed to wear the veil because every French people is just French. Like we don't have religion.
Yes.
Religion is supposed to be a private thing. Like we keep it at home for French people. Like
you're supposed to be French first, and then you can be something else. And that's what you said, Kate, about the collectivist aspect prevailing over individual freedom or individual expression. And I guess that this is what Odile was describing. In fact, yeah, that's all those social issues that come time and again in the French debate over whether you're supposed to be allowed to wear a veil at work, things like that. They come from the fact that indeed we don't give priority to individual freedom. We give priority to a social of social cohesion. And of course, when you stand, from a different vantage point, and which is, for instance, the American vantage point, which is about giving priority to the individual, then, that doesn't make sense, of course, because the priority is not the same. So it's all a question of vantage point, what prevails over what. And that very much relates, I guess that answers the question about laïcité as well, okay? Laïcité being the rule of the state prevailing over your personal expression of faith, of religion, of anything else. Mm-hmm.
I think that's very well put. Do we have any questions from our present audience? Jenny in the back.
So in elementary school, we were always told to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And like some of us, like we were kids, so some of us didn't really know what it meant. And we would just like say it automatically. But I think recently, some people are allowed to sit out of saying the pledge if they don't want to. So I'm kind of curious if like France has like that kind of nationalism or like support if they have like a Pledge of Allegiance, kind of like the US, and like if you wanted to sit out, would you be like punished for it?
Well, not really. We don't really have that kind of stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure most French people don't even know the national anthem. At least not all the words of it. And we don't. I know that in America there is this big thing around the flag. Like you're supposed to fold it in a certain way. And in France, like you don't throw an American flag on the ground. It's really rude in America. In France, people don't really care about these symbols.
They do care about the Marseillaise though, because we've seen in soccer matches, games, we've seen, for example, football players do a sign that was misinterpreted. I mean, and at one point I remember when there were players whose mouths were not saying the French anthem. That became a problem. So
problematic. But there's no such thing as a Pledge of Allegiance. You don't make the students stand up, the eight-year-olds stand up and pledge allegiance to the flag in France. That's not something that happens.
No,
not at all.
Certainly not with God in it.
Certainly not something with God in it. Yes.
Because I went to intermediate school in Houston, Texas, and I had to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and it was really strange for me as a French person. I can tell you that it was a whole other culture.
But the question that Jenny asked was, I think it was Jenny who asked it, is extremely interesting because I had never thought about it. But yes, on the one hand, as we just said previously, in France, the collectivist aspect seems to be the priority over the individual, and yet it's quite paradoxical to think that in schools, we don't have that type of meeting in the morning. We don't have that honoring of the flag. That is rather paradoxical, and I had never thought about it. So thank you very much, Jenny. But I'm not sure I have an answer to your question. But that is rather strange and surprising in a way.
But it used to be probably that we had to recite Catholic prayer, because we were a Catholic country for a very long time, where the Catholicism was really important. So for a long time we had that, but laïcité was built against that. So
yes, but precisely.
This is the history, and both our histories are very different.
But precisely when the state wanted to get rid of, the church in the schools, in public places, it might have been a good way of erasing the presence of the church by replacing those Catholic songs by something more related to the state, but it didn't happen. So I'm not sure why. That's a really good idea. It's a really good question.
Very good question. We have another question in person here from Mr. Tedamasi.
Yes. Actually, I'd say just some information for Lorraine. She had mentioned poetry in two of her comments today. And she may not realize that New Jersey hosts the largest, one of the largest poetry festivals in the world every 2 years here in New Jersey. And it's called the Dodge Poetry Festival. And it attracts people from all over the world, including France. And I'm going to pay attention to the translation of the poetry from now on to see if I can get the experience of the meeting.
Well, thank you very much for this information. That's an extra reason to come and visit.
You could also probably going to be able to view it online. It's the next one is it's every 2 years, so the next one is October of 2022. And if you just and it's like 3 or 4 days, and you can in Newark, New Jersey, and when you online, you just have to Google Dodge Poetry Festival.
Well, thanks a lot. That sounds wonderful. Yes, thanks.
Students, have any of you kept in touch with your partners or any of the other students in the class?
Oh yeah, definitely. I happen to keep contact with Lucy and Julie as well. So we spoke like a couple of minutes, a couple hours before. So yeah.
That's great. How about you, Daniel?
Well, Raphael and myself, we haven't kept in touch too much, but we're still both in this group, you know, like a Facebook group, and people are still active in it. So there's still communication.
There's still communication. Yeah. How about for Julie and Odile? Are you keeping in touch with?
Not really, no.
Maybe during the class.
I'm still on the group chat, obviously, but I didn't really keep contact with my partner.
Well, Adlan was here previously, and he says that Leo has invited him to visit him in Paris. So he'll be going to visit Leo in Paris, and he wants to go to Versailles. He was asking me today how much it costs to get into the Palace of Versailles.
Well, for my part, I kept in touch with Kane and also with Steven, who was like my partner. Yeah, I didn't keep in touch with like others because I didn't really get the chance to know them better. And the French people, well, these were just my peers, and well, yeah, you don't get along with everyone, but I'm willing to talk with anyone if one day anyone pop up, you know, and just start a conversation. I would love to go to New Jersey while I'm here in Oklahoma, but maybe next semester. I've talked with like Steven and Scanny about that, and I have also a friend in Rochester, so if I have the opportunity, I'd love to go.
That's where I'm from, is Rochester. You can come stay with my family in Rochester. And you're welcome also here in New Jersey. Any final comments or questions from either side? Well, I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. I can't wait to the day that I can share a glass of Bordeaux with Noreen and Sophie to cheer ourselves on this year of work, and I just want to thank everyone again for all the work that's gone into this project and everyone's enthusiasm and expertise, and just thank you all for being here today. And
I wanted to can I just add something that we hope that we're going to continue this year. So on that note, it would be nice. I mean, we're going to do something. We're going to carry it on and maybe do it a little bit differently this year, and it will be very interesting to continue with new students, I think.
Yeah, we have a whole new cohort of students on both sides that are going to do this in the spring semester. So we'll choose a new topic, and a new topic for the purposes of cultural comparison, and see where that takes us.
Yes. Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you, Kate.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Face.
And thank you, AJ and Jenny. Really,
yes.
And Montclair State University. Yeah, we hope to be able to visit one day, and that you come and visit too.
We will.
And we were so grateful to Jenny for all the hours that she put in this video that was I mean, it was probably a real nightmare because you had bits and pieces in French that you could not really understand, and you had to make something out of it. I mean, having a bilingual video like that and dealing with people on the other side of the Atlantic who were not available at the same hours as you were. All my congratulations for, you know, having faced that huge challenge and having come up with something great as you did. And I do hope you catch up on your sleep.
Yes, AJ has tabulated just the number of hours that the tech team spent on this, and it's in the many hundreds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Plus the time that the faculty spent preparing and meeting and teaching, and the students, the time that you spent on the project. So this was a labor of love. So thank you.
And we hope that the FACE Foundation is happy with the results.
We hope so too. Merci. Merci.
Merci à tous.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Julie. Have fun in the United States.
Thanks. I have to keep on.
Manage
because-
of it, yes.
Yeah, vacation next week. Finally.
That's
À bientôt, Julie.
Au revoir. Bye.
You're gonna miss us.
Bye.
You don't even know how much you're gonna miss us.
That's right, you're gonna miss us.
Yes, we are.
Kate and I will be in touch probably early next week. I think it would be good for all of us to get on a Zoom call once we've gotten a few days behind this, sort of decompress. And, you know, we're also going to have a very, very short window of opportunity where we'll be able to go in and make sure that all the subtitles are right. A couple of little things that Jenny just ran out of time for, you know, miraculously got the subtitles right.